their whole experience of existing is that kind of trepidatious feeling of being on a first date with somebody. Like as soon as they realize they want something they don't have, or they want to be something that they're not, it's like that they're kind of ashamed of it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, even in your own head, it's like you're on a first date with somebody who you're really into and want to impress, and you have to poop, and you feel weird about it, uncomfortable. You don't want to be gone too. You know what I mean? There's all that just like weird. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine that scenario. The feeling of that is different than if you're at home by yourself, not expecting any company, watching TV, and you suddenly realize, I think I need to poop. It's just like, well, you don't even think about it. You just go, and that's just that, and it's fine, and it's relaxed. You're not worried about how long you're going to be in there, or what. You're not worried about any of the various things, that accompany that activity. You just do it. And I think that when it comes to the things that you want to, the ways in which you want to be different than you are, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any money, I want to have money. I don't have any boyfriend, I don't have any girlfriend, I'd like one. I don't like my body, I'd like to like my body. It needs to be like, oh, I'm home by myself and I realize I have to poop. And there's like plenty of TP, nobody's coming, it's totally quiet, like no one's there. It's just cool, it's just whatever, That level of comfort and naturalness, I think, is the essence of kind of what we're going for.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing is, because so many people are so entrenched in feeling uncomfortable about who and what they are, and they're uncomfortable about the fact that they're not what they want to be, and they're uncomfortable about the fact that they want to be something other than what they are, and they're uncomfortable about wanting to be the specific thing,
Mm-hmm.
People want to be pretty. You know what I'm saying? People want to be desired or found attractive, or people want to be popular or liked or whatever. And not only do they feel bad because they're not those things, they're the opposite of those things, at least in their own experience, right? So they feel bad about not being what they want to be. They feel bad about being what they don't want to be. And then they feel kind of weird and bad about the fact that they even want to be that thing, because that kind of feels weird sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be popular and you're not, or you want to be regarded as a nice, helpful person, but you're regarded as kind of a jerk, it doesn't feel good to be regarded as a jerk, and it really doesn't feel good to be regarded as a jerk who wants to be well regarded, which is why people pretend like they don't want it,
Mm-hmm.
which is why people on a first date pretend like they don't have to poop if they're not comfortable. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to be in that position where you're fine with the fact that reality is the way that it is, your experience is the way that it is, and this is an interesting. A lot of people can do that. And that's what you were talking about, like that acceptance. I'm fine. I'm fine. I just watch my TV show, and I eat my little candies, and I do my little this and that. You know what I'm saying? And I volunteer at the animal shelter, and it doesn't bother me anymore that I'm not making the money I want to make, or having the family I want to have, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? That's that kind of like, I'm accepting and I'm finding ways to create little creature comforts in the reality of what is. And I don't open up my desire closet because I get overwhelmed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, I feel like embracing your desires or acknowledging your desires in a way. It's a lot like asking somebody out on that first date. It's like, there's a risk-reward thing here. I want to let you know I'm interested in you, because you might then decide that you want to hang out with me. But the risk is you might reject me.
Mm-hmm.
And with desires, it's like I acknowledge to myself that I want this and I don't have it. And the reward potentially there is that if I acknowledge that to myself and I get to work, in kind of changing myself or my life or whatever, there's a possibility I'll be able to create this thing. But the risk is that I acknowledge that I want it, I don't get it, and then I can never put on as convincing a facade of happiness as I do now, having not acknowledged it to begin with. Like even if everyone knows you want to ask so-and-so out on a date, if you haven't done it yet, there's a part of you that believes that they don't know that you really want to. And there's a part of you that believes, perhaps, that you don't really want to. But as soon as you go on the record as saying, I want this thing, if you get rejected, you can never quite go back, unless you have certain skills, right? You can never quite go back to being as sort of, you've showed your hand. You can't really bluff anymore. You know what I mean? And so I think you want to have that level of comfort where you just are able to say, listen, I want this. I want to be this way. I'm not this. And I think a lot of what that comes from is that having these experiences that demonstrate your own and other people's capacity to be radically different than however they happen to be at a given moment in time,
Mm-hmm.
and becoming kind of like a little bit untethered from reality, and it's not untethered from reality, it's untethered from the implications of reality, untethered from whatever your current meanings that you've assigned to the fact that what is what, you know,
Yeah.
what is at a given moment in time. Like, that's that. And if you just leave that, it's actually never that bad. But if you then start layering meanings on it about, you know, what does the fact that I am the way that I am mean about me currently? Oh shit, I'm a piece of crap. Nobody likes me, all this different stuff. And then you kind of layer on top of that shit sandwich a whole bunch of stuff about your future. The fact that I'm this much overweight, or I've been alone for this long, or I'm this age, or look this way, or whatever means, you know what I mean? Bad things about me now, and also the fact that these things are the way that they are now, and the fact that reality is the way that it is, people don't change, whatever, means that my future is kind of fucked too. You know what I mean? That's a depressing kind of world to live in. But I think it's like when you can begin to change your relationship to the way that you currently are, that's when you really have a lot of freedom. Because that's the most fundamental, I think this is the thing, the most fundamental characteristic of you, of me, is not anything that's observable by other people directly. So like, if I have, I don't know, just pick something about my personality, whatever you think if you don't know anything about me, think it's about yourself. Think about what you think about yourself. And you tend to think, okay, that's the reality of who I am. I'm cynical, I'm social, I'm caring, I'm gullible, I'm selfish, I'm a narcissist, I'm whatever, right? Really, the reality is, like, as soon as you define something about yourself and you say, that's my problem, that's my asset, that's why I'm bad, that's why I'm good, that's why I deserve, that's why I don't deserve, that's why I'm worthy, that's why I'm not, whatever it is that you're pointing at is less relevant to the reality kind of who you are than is your relationship to that thing once you've identified it. You know what I mean? And I think that relationship is unseen. The attributes, the things that you are kind of expressing or manifesting in your life at a given moment in time are, you know, I tend to be abusive, let's say. Someone, you know, and a person who really, like, they identify with the fact that they're abusive, if the reality that they've been demonstrating abusive behaviors or tendencies or whatever, if that's the realest part of who they are, right, to them, they don't have the capacity to change that. But if they recognize that my relationship, like if I can look back at my past and be like, shit, I've been kind of an abusive asshole to my kids, to my wife, to my coworkers, to my employees, whatever, you know, if you can see that and then say, that's not what I want, and what I do want is something different. I want different behaviors, I want different feelings, I want different thoughts, I want a different worldview, I want a different experience of other people that makes it impossible for me to behave this way, or makes it possible for me to behave differently. You know what I mean? If you can see something undesirable about yourself and then say, okay, given that, what do I want? You know what I mean? That's, you're at home by yourself, realize you have to poop, and you just go do it. Rather than being on the first date and realizing you have to poop is saying, I ought to be other than I am, and I'm not that way already, and therefore things aren't okay, and I just need to resist it and suffer over it, and end up persistent doing it, and then feel even worse every time, right? Because you don't have permission to be as you are at a given moment in time, which means that you don't have the ability or the power to respond resourcefully to the fact that that's the way that you are, which means that you don't have the possibility to change. You don't have the ability to choose to be something different. There has to be that space for you to be fucked up, right? And then the beginning of the unfucking is to say, boy, I'm fucked up. Sure would like to not be, you know, and have that kind of an attitude. That is the initiation of the unfucking, is to be fucked and to say, I'd like to not be, rather than saying, oh my God, I'm fucked, and oh, that's fucked up, and oh, I'm so awful, and I'm so bad, and how embarrassing, and it's not okay, and I'm behind. You know what I mean? Like, people have this, I don't know, this weird tendency to assume that it's possible for reality to be some way that is unacceptable at, like, an existential level. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Like if it weren't at some level okay for you to be as fucked up as you think you are, it wouldn't be possible for you to be that way. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And I think that when you kind of be like, okay, well shit, apparently being as fucked up as I am, or at least think I am, or experience myself to be, or have been told that I am, apparently that's a part of what's possible in this world. And so given the fact that that's some shit that happens sometimes, obviously, because it is happening, I don't have to worry about whether or not it's right or okay or appropriate or acceptable that it's happening. It's good enough for me just to know that it is happening. And then I can just look at that and then say, okay, given that, what do I want? That is the beginning of the changing, because you're responding in a not fucked up way to the fact that you feel that you're fucked up. That's changing who you are. You know, but it's fucked up to say, oh, I'm fucked up, and then to respond to that in a fucked up way because you're so upset about it. That's just more fucking. in the negative sense. You know what I'm saying? That's heading harder in the direction that you don't want to go because you really don't want to go there. But I think that a lot of people have a really powerful ability to not see that, and then to continue leaning hard in the direction that they don't want to go because that's the direction they don't want to be going in. And I think that when you can kind of see how that doesn't make sense, you can begin to do something different. I mean, that was one of the big things for me was I mean, it's one thing to have you told something doesn't make any sense by somebody else, and usually what you do is you just keep doing what doesn't make any sense, but then you add a bad feeling on top of it that says, listen, I know that this doesn't make sense, but I experience a compulsion to do it anyway. That doesn't usually help very much, because you just add you take the bad feeling of heading in the wrong direction, and you add on top of that the feeling that you shouldn't be going in that direction, but you can't, So then you got the bad feeling of going in the wrong direction. You got the bad feeling of feeling that you're doing something that you shouldn't do. And then you've got the bad feeling of not being able to keep yourself from doing something that you feel you shouldn't do. So then you got 3 bad feelings, which is all just heading in the wrong direction. You know what I'm saying? But if you can get to the place where you're heading in the wrong direction and you're still heading in the wrong direction, and you say to yourself, this doesn't look like the right direction for me. I think I'd like to be going in a different direction. I wonder how I could go about doing that. You're heading in the right direction already at a meta level. So you're driving driving a go-kart in the wrong direction, but you're in a train box car that's heading in the right direction at that moment when you respond resourcefully to the fact that you're heading in the wrong way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But until you have that space, it's a fucking con, It's this con where people draw your attention to how, this is, I think, something that you see a lot in school, that you do badly on a test, and you get that devastating news that you did badly on the test, and the teacher says, you better not do this ever again. And so the next time you take the test, you're like, oh shit, you know what I mean? And you're not thinking about taking the test, you're thinking about how you don't want to fail it. And those are just different states of consciousness. They're just different mental behaviors. And I think that, there's something really weird when a person sees the way that they are and they respond to it by just hating the way that they are, or feeling guilty or ashamed about the way that they are. You don't recognize that you are making yourself more of that way. What you resist persists, as a principle, and it rhymes, and so it sounds good. But in the moment, it doesn't feel like that. But you have to recognize that resentment and resistance and hating and whatever, about whatever your life, is going on in your life, or whoever you think you are, or whatever, that's making you more that way. And I think that when you really begin to see that, that's the place where you say, I don't even know what else to do, and I don't have any. I guess you can either be proactively making yourself the way you want to be. You could be just kind of doing nothing and just kind of existing on momentum, or you can be actively making yourself the way you don't want to be. And I think one of the key things is helping a person to recognize that when you're just responding in a habitual, patterned, unresourceful, negative, reactionary way to how you are, you're actually actively making yourself, when you're beating yourself up for being fat, you're going to get fatter than you would if you just said, well, shit, I'm fat. I think I'll have some more chips. Maybe I'll do something about it later. That, and don't just say it, but actually feel it throughout your whole body, The chances of you then having some residual psychic energy that you can use to look into getting into shape, that you want to be in, is much greater. And I think that you have to recognize that I'd be better off being an asshole and truly not feeling bad about it than I would being an asshole, feeling terrible about it, and making myself feel so bad that when someone comes along and does something I don't like, I'm a real asshole to them too. But you have to get out of this punishment as a correction kind of thing. And I think a lot of that originates in childhood, that you see your parents punish you, and they tend to punish you when it's really important that you not do something. And so you get this idea in your head that says, I think a lot of the times children learn in spite of the shitty teaching strategies of their parents. But what happens is you say, well, if you don't smack the kid, he won't learn. Well, I think that's pretty fucking stupid. Just because you smack a kid and he learns doesn't mean that he can't learn without the smacking. Do you really think that you've got to do physical harm to a child's body in order for their brain to work right? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And if that's really true, I should be knocking the shit out of you right now, because you know what I'm saying? You can't figure out how to keep the Twinkies out of your mouth, or you can't figure out how to shuffle them in and just let it be okay. You know what I'm saying? You're telling me that if someone just whooped your ass badly enough that you'd be able just to have a happy life, or get in shape, or enjoy being out of shape, or whatever? It doesn't make any sense. And so I think, though, that these patterns get established when we're growing up, and so we learn, you don't want to beat yourself up over everything necessarily, but if something's really important, get the paddle out get the criticism out. Say really terrible, harsh things to yourself. I have to stop this. Oh my God, I'm such a piece of shit. Oh my God, just do all that. And by the way, don't pay any attention to whether or not it's working. If it doesn't work, it's because you didn't do it enough, right? If it doesn't, if you scratch that wound and the wound doesn't heal, it's because you didn't scratch it hard enough, often enough, or for long enough, or with a sharp enough instrument. You know what I'm saying?
That's so good, yeah.
But a person needs to be able to see how stupid that is, right? And I think that as soon as a person really sees how stupid that is, at the same moment they recognize that's not them. That's some shit that they picked up somewhere. And so that's one of those things sometimes I think people don't like it. Okay, most people are fine with it, but some people have a little bit of a problem when I talk about things being stupid. And it's because they're afraid that I'm saying that they're going to recognize things that they are stupid. But the wonderful thing about really recognizing how completely fucking stupid this stuff is that in the moment of that recognition, in order for you to see how stupid the shit that you're doing really is, you have to get it far enough from your sense of self to be able to see it for what it is. So you've already dissociated from it at that point. And if you recognize that something that's not you is just fucking just so dumb, right? So stupid, so unproductive. Well, it's not you. What do you care? It's just, you know what I'm saying? It's like you can recognize, like, I don't know. You read about like medical books and how they used to, do weird stuff to people and it doesn't make any sense. Like, let me give you some mercury that'll help you feel better. It seems really dumb. You don't feel bad about that, do you? I mean, you don't say to yourself, God, human beings are so dumb. You're not identified with it because you've got objectivity. Now, if you were a doctor that had been administering mercury, you might take it a little personally, But in order to see it the way that we do, there has to be this distance of time. And I think that in terms of like personal change, there is a level of objectivity that a person achieves, that has to achieve before they can see. I mean, you might get at some level it's kind of stupid, but the moment when you're able to see how like really fucking stupid it is, it has to be far enough away from you that it's essentially torn off from you. It's not so elastic. None of these patterns are so elastic that you can push them out far enough to recognize how totally stupid they are and still be connected to them experientially or identified with them. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.